Resolution Surveys and Beyond webinar. My name is Sabrina Baksh, and I will be your host today. Today we're joining Mike Allen, practice leader of Right First Time, and Rob McDougall, president of Upstream Works Software, as they review customer surveys, where they help, and where you need to go beyond. They will propose a maturity model for first contact resolution to illustrate where you are today and what actions you can take to improve your FCR rate. Just a bit of housekeeping to cover before we get started. For best viewing results for your webinar, please select the following buttons so that you can view the webinar in full screen mode if it isn't already in full screen mode for you. Also, just to let you know that to avoid interruptions, all attendees have been placed in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to type it into the question box on your screen, and we'll definitely try to answer as many of your questions as possible at the end of the webinar within the allotted time we have today. And when you leave the webinar, you'll be asked to complete a quick 4-question survey. Please take a few minutes to complete it, as it gives the presenters valuable feedback. It's my pleasure to introduce Mike Allen. Mike has over 20 years experience researching innovation in contact centers in 18 countries. In the last 2 years, Mike's FCR masterclasses have been attended by half of the UK's Fortune 500 companies. His expertise in reducing repeat contacts across multiple channels has made him the go-to guy for business and government organizations, including the UK's biggest police forces and major departments. I'd also like to introduce Rob McDougall. Rob is president and co-founder of Upstream Works and has been a catalyst for change within the contact center industry for over 15 years and focuses on interaction management and first contact resolution as the foundation for customer service improvement. First contact resolution surveys are a great way to measure customer satisfaction and loyalty, but many organizations are stumped as to what to do next. Mike will discuss the evolution of FCR measurement, starting with surveys to gain executive sponsorship, and then moving forward to using actionable interaction data to improve overall performance. Rob will review the benefits and use of this information in long-term quality improvement processes across the organization. In this webinar, you will learn best practices in automated voice of the customer survey methods, how to use interaction management as part of your first contact resolution strategy, and how to leverage first contact resolution information across the enterprise. Now, let's get started. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Sabrina. Today, Mike and I are going to talk about first contact resolution and introduce a maturity model to you that stretches from basic awareness of the need to look at FCR through telephone surveys, through 360-degree customer feedback, and onto a system of record that gives you accountability, really, for any interaction across any channel across the organization. And that lets you manage your contact center based on interaction performance. And this is where first contact resolution changes from something that you're thinking about to something you're capturing directly from your customers and using it to, I guess, almost drive shock and awe up through your management to a complex program of capturing results across all the various contact channels, and finally to becoming a metric that is easy to use and is directly usable to improve performance from executives all the way down to supervisors. So FCR measurement changes from a one-off benchmark to a recurring program that gives you the news but doesn't tell you how to specifically fix things, onto an ongoing systematic process that is used to manage the business. So changing focus from one of simply measuring FCR to creating a system that inherently provides an FCR metric, you'll start to be able to do some other great things with your customers, like directing repeat calls to minimize frustrations, understanding the root causes of issues that you didn't even know you had, or understanding what calls are driving repeats, and it might surprise you. And you can start to look at FCR across every customer interaction channel, not just phone calls. So let's start with a very broad maturity model, and it starts with just general awareness that FCR is an issue and that it should be looked at. And then that's followed by measurement, and primarily of a single channel with potentially multiple measurement types, but all of them focus solely on the customer. And this phase is categorized by the focus of resources here being primarily on the process of measuring FCR rather than actually working to improve FCR. third is getting a much better 360-degree view of the customer with a focus on understanding the customer experience across all of the channels, with FCR being a primary indicator, but along with things like Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction. But a lot of effort is still spent on getting the usable measurement, and improvement is project-driven rather than systematic. And then the fourth and final stage is an interaction management program where the focus shifts from FCR as a measurement to that of FCR as an indicator of performance. But the information used to calculate FCR is done as a function of normal business with all the previous tools to be able to augment the additional information. So the first stage that we look at is awareness, just starting to look at how to measure FCR, get an understanding and a buy-in from some of the business benefits through the organization. And I'm sure, as you probably all know, FCR is one of those, I guess, loosely defined terms. It might vary depending on the organization. And ultimately, it's defined by the customer's perceptions in the purest sense. But you basically need to come up with a definition that works for you and then use that information consistently. There's a few definitions you can use, from asking the customer if the issue was resolved to simple repeat call tracking. We at Upstream use a definition that involves the same customer contacting you on any channel for the same reason within a defined time horizon for that specific reason. I'm going to tell you, there are problems with every definition. Right? I mean, I'm sure everyone has heard the statistic that the FCR you measure internally is always higher than what your surveys from your customers are going to tell you. And that's fine, because I say it doesn't matter. This is not a contest. It's enough to know that an internal measure of FCR is related to the external measure of FCR, and it's consistent. And then you can move on to looking at how we use the information we're collecting. Now, the next level that people look at is about getting a good solid handle on what their FCR rates actually are. And I'm going to pass things over to Mike Allen to talk about using surveys. Mike?
Thanks very much, Rob. Hello, everybody. I hope you can understand my heavy Welsh accent, but I will assure you that I have managed to use this accent very effectively in the UK, and people tell me that we've won the confidence of over 500 organisations who've been wrestling with the FCR problem, and many of them came to our masterclasses, our first contact resolution masterclasses, which we've run over the last 2 years. And what's happened in almost a parallel world to Rob and you guys in North America, a typology has emerged, which is actually very, very consistent with Rob's maturity model. But before we talk in depth about surveys as a first contact resolution improvement tool, I'd just like to make a few observations based on the experiences that we had with UK, Irish, and a few European and South African companies as well. And that is that actually the measurement of repeat volumes and identifying root cause analysis for repeats, and then moving into an organized, scheduled, and quantified fix rate, for us is far more important than the first contact resolution rate per se. And just to be clear on that, what we're really saying is that maybe too much effort goes into identifying a first contact resolution rate, whereas the real successes have been with people who've worked harder on identifying the repeat contact volumes. So not so much success, they're looking for failures, I think is what I'm saying there. But secondly, prior to getting involved with first contact resolution, I've done quite a lot of work in my career on benchmarking. And although benchmarking between companies, not within the company, but between companies is a worthwhile management pursuit in the contact center space, very worthwhile when you're measuring things like pay or some operational KPIs, like say average handling time, for example, or even things like employee engagement, attrition, and so on. Very useful to measure that between organizations. But when it comes to first contact resolution, the various channel mixes, vertical market variations, the modus operandi of the business, whether they be a telephonic-based business or they're more web-based business. That variation means that benchmarking between organizations actually doesn't work, in my view. It doesn't really work numerically in a quantitative way. It doesn't work, and it's far better pursued into the qualitative experiences, really. So those organizations we dealt with have started trying to find a magic formula or default way that everybody should measure FCR. As they mature, they actually give up on that, and rightly so. So thirdly, one of the other things you've seen, and this is probably aimed more at the larger operations who are listening in today, is that what we've also seen in our domestic markets is that several of the organizations with very big MI teams and internal analyst capability, they've actually believed that they can generate the mathematical algorithm required for complex, multi-channel FCR calculations. And although many of our customers have some extremely bright people working within the organizations, what they don't tend to have is pure mathematicians, very pure mathematicians. And what's actually happened as a result of that is we've seen some very spectacular failures in terms of investment in the MI analyst salary costs for an internally developed project, the time wasted in trying to do a DIY build, a do-it-yourself build, and probably more importantly, I've seen at least 3 up-and-coming directors get the bullet, get fired for investing typically a year or more in trying to internally develop an MI system capable of generating a comprehensive FCR system based on MI. And one organization, in particular, is a very well-known organization, committed 45 analysts, and then rolled out an FCR MI-based system, internally built, with a direct link to agent bonuses. So they were trying, rightly so, to generate a metric at agent level that could be used reliably to incentivize staff to achieve high levels of FCR. And it took 12 months to develop, as I say, 45 analysts. It ran for 30 days, which was the first month. And then the second month, when the first set of data came in for comparison, which was going to have an impact on the agent's salaries, it ran for 3 days and it was pulled. Okay, and I think that's a typical example of a organization maybe trying to do something internally that there are opportunities to do it externally. So fourthly, the other thing is that what a lot of organizations don't get, they don't get the fact that each repeat code reason has its own natural duration. So for example, if you were working in a cable television business, you might have a call relating to a PIN, personal identification number, a reset code as a repeat reason. Chances are, if you get a second call come in within 15 to 30 minutes of that, it's probably a repeat reason because the PIN code hasn't worked for some reason. So that's got a very short life. But a billing issue could be 30 or 60 days long. So what a lot of organizations we've seen from the rest of FCR have done, they put in an artificial one timestamp to cover all FCR reasons, and that doesn't work too well either. Okay, and fifth and finally, and a bit of comfort here, and looking at this slide of mine, you see the Emperor's New Clothes story, which you all remember, with the Emperor walking down the street without any clothes on, and only the little boy on the left telling everybody that that he was naked. And I sometimes see myself as a 46-year-old man, as that little boy, and saying to people, well, actually, you know, there are a lot of organizations out there who are claiming FCR rates of, fantastic FCR rates of 95% and so on, and the reality of it is they can't actually measure it. Using the methodology they have, they can't actually measure it. And in our right first time standard, what we've actually found is that we set a bar at 65%, and only about half the organizations that take the standard actually can clear that bar. So don't be too concerned if you're struggling with FCR, because in reality everybody is. Okay, so just turning now to specific research methodologies for first contact resolution. And of course what we've got